Cheers, everyone. Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. Now, when Donald Trump was president for 4 years, we had 4 years of relative calm when it comes to foreign policy. Now, we did fire missiles at Syria, we did bomb the bleep out of ISIS, and we did hit the Iranian general Soleimani in Iraq. But compared to Obama, who was the donor-in-chief, and compared to George Bush, we were a lot more subdued. And it seemed that we had finally turned away from this really out of control NeoCon foreign policy. And that is something that Trump ran on. We all can remember the debate with Jeb Bush when he called out the Bush family and called out the disaster that was the Iraq War. And that was ballsy for Trump because if the majority of Republican voters didn't feel that way and still felt that we should have invaded Iraq, well, that could have just killed his candidacy. But it appears that many Republicans were ready for that message and were ready to move away from the Bushes and the McCains. And that's what we were doing during those 4 years under Trump, moving away from that. That being said, neocons were still in our government, at the State Department, at the Pentagon, and they were still outside of Trump's view doing a lot of things that were counterproductive. For example, we have the Ukraine project. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, it was a surprise for a lot of people. Now, in hindsight, if we were paying attention, we should have seen it coming. We helped to overthrow the Ukrainian government in 2014. We had John McCain, Lindsey Graham in Kyiv talking to the Ukrainian military, guys in uniform, and they were saying, we're going to go back to Washington and make the case against Russia. We're going to get you the weapons you need so you can go on the offensive. That happened in 2016. But were we really paying attention? No. And then 2018. Why was Trump impeached the first time? It was the phone call with who? Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, where he momentarily held up lethal aid being sent to Ukraine. That is why they impeached him. So Trump himself was rejecting the neocons, but they were still there doing things in the background. And when he tried to turn off that little spigot there of weapons to Ukraine, they impeached him. Now, in this 2024 presidential race, we have, of course, Trump running, but we also have somebody who I find every day to be more and more insane, dangerous, complete lunatic. And that person is Nikki Haley, because Pence dropped out, so Pence is gone. And Nikki Haley takes the mantle of being the most unhinged person running for the Republican nomination. And one of the things that really clued me off to the fact that she was just out of her mind, besides the normal, neocon lines about, Ukraine and Russia, was a debate in August where she's going back and forth with Vivek Ramaswamy. And she said something that was absolutely, in my opinion, completely ridiculous. Here is what she said.
To protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel needs America. America needs Israel.
Okay.
So that short clip there, she says that it's not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. I heard her say that. I'm going, what in good name is she talking about? And ironically, we have October 7th, the attack by Hamas, and now we have two carrier groups over there off the coast. We are sending weapons every day on transport to Israel, And the House just passed a new bill that would give Israel another $13 billion in aid. So on what planet does America need Israel more than Israel needs America? And so yeah, I'm thinking about that, and I'm going through her tweets on X, and when you go through them, you start to get a feel for why she would say something that ridiculous. And there's a religious component that I think can't be overlooked. I was recently at a funeral, and the pastor brought up Israel, and it was a very important thing to him. And it reminded me, somebody who doesn't go to church very often, well, hardly at all, that we live in a country of Christians who are the majority. And for a lot of Christians, there is a religious component that drives them to love and support Israel. And you can do that irrespective of religious beliefs. You can support Israel, that's fine. But for Christians, it's much, much deeper. And when I went through Nikki Haley's tweets, I could see that. And I found it to be really unnerving for a presidential candidate to be so tied up in religion and God. And here's what she said in some of her tweets here. No one can destroy what God has blessed. And not only has God blessed Israel, God has blessed those who stand with her. And I promise, if I have any say in the matter, America will always stand with Israel. So God has blessed Israel. I guess God hasn't blessed China. God hasn't blessed Romania, Japan, Brazil. God has blessed Israel. And that, again, is a really religious thing there, coming from a Christian perspective. Another tweet here. We saw God's goodness in the outpouring of support that descended on Israel from around the world. And while evil is trying to claw its way back, God's goodness is still clear, and it always will be. In both Israel and Ukraine, an evil regime is responsible for starting a war. Iran and Russia are joined at the hip, and they're both unlimited partners of communist China. Iran, Russia, and China are part of an unholy alliance. They have no regard for human life. America can never be neutral between good and evil. We must pick a side, and we serve our own national interests best when we side with good. So they're an unholy alliance. Is she, is this a religious war here? It makes you wonder. Again, coming from a presidential candidate, I find that concerning. Focus on policy. You're not a pastor or preacher. You're supposed to be, again, a politician. And then she has several tweets saying this, and this is controversial. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Now, is that true? Well, there are many Jews who do not support Zionism. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I'm just pointing that out. So, are these Jews who don't support Zionism anti-Semitic? And I reject the notion that you are anti-Semitic simply for not supporting Zionism. And again, a politician like her saying this over and over again, I find concerning. Now, back to Iran, China, and Russia. Another thing that these NeoCons do, and she does this here, is that they are playing this very, very dangerous zero-sum game, meaning that anything positive economically, militarily, for Russia, Iran, or China is seen as a threat to the United States. It's taking away from the United States. So basically, if those countries are prosperous and successful, that's somehow a threat to us. And as you can imagine, again, that is a very dangerous idea. So she says here, Communist China is the most dangerous foreign threat we've faced since the Second World War. Well, congratulations to the Soviet Union. You have been leapfrogged by China as our most dangerous adversary. So the whole Cuban Missile Crisis thing, well, Communist China, they're a much more dangerous threat. And another tweet here, when China, Russia, and Iran wins, America loses. Zero sum. We need to keep our people safe by standing strong across the world. For the sake of our people's safety and our nation's security, I promise America will lead again. Read my latest at the New York Post. So here is her article from the New York Post, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. Just a couple of parts that I thought were interesting. Nikki Haley, peace is not possible with terrorists, must be destroyed. But she says here, we're living through the worst crisis of the 21st century. Iran-backed terrorists just attacked Israel, forcing America's ally to protect its very survival. Russia has invaded Ukraine, threatening a broader war in Europe, and communist China is getting closer to invading Taiwan, which would start a war in the Pacific. Iran, Russia, and China are working together. They don't just want to conquer our friends. They ultimately want to destroy America. So they want to destroy us. How, might you ask? That's a good question. Russia, when they invaded Ukraine, they found out very quickly that they lacked the troops to actually hold the Donbass, and they were beaten back last summer. And it took a year of building their army to get to the point now where they can finally move forward a little bit on Ukraine and move that line slowly forward. So I'm trying to figure out how Russia is going to destroy America. But going past that, has Russia ever said that they wanted to destroy America? Can you find something from Putin going, my goal is to destroy the United States and make Russia the world leader, the world empire? He's never said that. Iran? Well, they have their stupid death to America chant, but that's usually about our support for Israel and we're the great Satan. And then we have China, who apparently wants to destroy America, and they can't even get control over their island province, Taiwan. So how exactly are they planning to destroy the United States? But this is the world that these NeoCons live in. All these countries, they want to destroy us. And if they get stronger, that's a threat to the United States. She says further, and in the Pacific, we should bolster Taiwan's defense. Communist China needs to know it would pay a very steep price by invading Taiwan. America must rally both our Asian and European allies to the cause of containing China's military and technological expansion. Our peace and prosperity depend on it. So, if China has technological expansion, that's a threat to the United States. That's threatening our peace and prosperity. What exactly has China done so far militarily to threaten, again, the United States? They don't even have control of their sphere over there in Asia. They're nowhere near us. But again, the neocons, everything's a threat. Everything's a potential war. If any other country that is not under our control is prosperous, well, that's a threat to the United States. Very, very dangerous thinking. And finally, only a strong America can chart a course through this global crisis. Yet, we'll only be strong if we're proud of our nation and our unique role. America is the greatest force for good in the world, except when we invade Afghanistan, Iraq, to stabilize Libya, occupy Syria. Ignore that. That's why the forces of evil are testing us in Israel, Ukraine, and so many other places. We need the moral clarity to recognize the danger to our freedom and our way of life. Again, I'm not sure how they're going to come over to the United States and threaten us. And we need the courage to renew American strength at home and abroad. There's no other way to come through this time of crisis. And there's no other country that can restore and ensure the lasting peace the American people deserve. Now, I find that last bit funny. The lasting peace that the American people deserve. We're not really at war. All the places that need peace are across the world, in Israel, in Iraq, in Syria, in Ukraine. It's very, very peaceful here. That is part of the problem. Our lives are relatively easy, so when the NeoCons go and have their crazy wars, they don't affect us enough for us to really get sick of them. So we do need lasting peace, but it's not for America. We have peace here because no one can threaten us. It's for all those other countries that we destabilize and start wars in. Those are the countries that need peace. Now, one last thing. It was my greatest concern that as Trump went through his legal troubles, and I thought that maybe the establishment might approach him and say, Donald, you have the nomination, but we want you to pick somebody for VP that we like, and we want you to pick Nikki Haley. And that was my concern because, she's really being pushed hard right now by the establishment. She's being astroturfed everywhere. They really do want her. But Trump, it seems, is not going to pick Nikki Haley. This is what he wrote on his Truth Social. MAGA or I will never go for bird brain Nikki Haley. No loyalty, plenty of lies. I will never run against our great president, she said. He has done an outstanding job. To which I responded, how nice of you to say, Nikki, knowing full well that her words mean nothing. She even came to Mar-a-Lago with her family bearing gifts. Anyway, bird brain doesn't have the talent or temperament to do the job. Make America great again. So it would seem that Trump is not going to pick bird brain Nikki Haley. So that is one thing I don't have to worry about. So Nikki Haley, neoconservative to the core, and just go through her Twitter. In my opinion, again, completely unhinged, and unfortunately, she represents a lot of people in D.C. They feel the same way. They look at Iran, China, Russia as she said, an unholy alliance. And my fear is we're going to have another situation approximating a Cold War, except I think those countries, that region together, is a lot stronger than it was when we were in competition with the Soviet Union. Obviously, China was in turmoil during the mid part of the century, 20th century, trying to build their economy up. And now they have the biggest manufacturing base in the world. They got over 1 billion people. They're building the Silk Road, trying to connect China with other parts of Asia and Russia. They are in a much better position than the Soviet Union was back in the 50s. And if we think we can take those countries on, take on the global South, the BRICS nations collectively, I think we're going to be surprised. The balance of power is shifting, which is something that we do recognize, and that is why, or another reason why, these neocons are so freaked out. They see power, the American empire, they see it starting to slip away. And instead of saying, you know what, we're going to have to accept a multipolar world. They're saying, we're going to do anything we can, no matter how crazy, to prevent that from happening. We're going to start proxy wars. We're going to saber rattle. We're going to do a lot of crazy things. And that's what we're seeing right now. So the 2024 election, very important. Trump, for all of his faults, was willing to do something that Biden is unwilling to do, and that is talk to other leaders. Xi, Putin, Kim Jong-un. He was willing to have a conversation. He talked tough. He said a lot of mean things to people, but he picked up the phone call and he kept things relatively peaceful. So I think for that reason, the 2024 election is incredibly important, especially if Russia, continues to get the upper hand in Ukraine. And of course, we have the Taiwan situation, the elections in, I think, February or whatever for Taiwan. So very, very critical election. And there is a lot on the table that we're risking right now. So fingers crossed he gets in there. At least in my opinion, that's what I want. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.